Welcome to Sunday School. The first Sunday school, I think the first Sunday school, isn't it, in January? Perhaps I'm wrong. Anyway, welcome to Sunday School. It is a cold, chilly day. I had to sort of warm up the living room here to even get myself situated to join you here this morning. And right after this, I'm going to completely bundle up, walk to the coffee shop, and then try to keep warm all day. But I know things are just crazy cold and miserable, especially across the Midwest of the United States. I can't complain. It looks very beautiful here, and I don't want to rub it in, but as a matter of fact, it is quite beautiful today. Uh, and it reminds me of the first little Sunday schools that I attended as a child. First at Belmont Height Methodist Church in Long Beach, California, which was a beautiful sort of a Spanish mission style architecture thing. It was like in my little childlike mind, I was being carried because I couldn't walk at the time. I was being carried uh, into the old Jerusalem. It had an air of old Jerusalem, and there was a sacredness about just the church building. And I feel the same way about church buildings. I dig the egregore, I guess and I don't much care about any of the doctrines or the sermons, especially about Bible stuff. But I just like the God stuff. Okay, and I still do. We are right next door here to a beautiful Lutheran church, and I guess many churches, standard white bread churches across the country and across the world, they don't hold services there anymore. They have events now and again, but they don't hold services. There seems to be sort of a conspicuous lack of a desire uh, to meet and worship as a community. Growing up in Columbus, Nebraska, the local churches, mostly Protestant, but it had a couple of really cool medieval looking Catholic churches too. I loved it because it smelled so good and they spoke Latin back in my day. And but we're seeming it seems like we're losing that, and I'm just bringing that up as a segue into my talk this morning on doing magic rituals as a group. Now we have seasonal celebrations and the pagan, neo-pagan witchcraft groups are really heavy into group rituals and festivals and group rituals, and that is just absolutely wonderful, and it's refreshing to see that even in provincial Sacramento here there is a pagan community. It's online, and they have events and things like that, and festivals and feasts and things. It's very nice. But as far as magic goes, especially the sort of Western ceremonial magic ilk, it's group rituals are kind of few and far between. Magic, I had Magic in Theory and Practice out yesterday, and a lot of the rituals that Crowley laid out in that classic text are just a magician in the magician's own temple, living room temple, bedroom temple, basement temple, doing things all by themselves. Ultimately, it's all doing things by yourself. Okay, no matter how packed the room is with people, if magic is being done, it's being done by yourself. Okay. Still, there's this need, and there is a certain amount of community energy, that, if you want to call it that, that is generated and directed. But Crowley gives us, or has left us, precious few examples of working in concert with other magicians. And on a personal level, every attempt that I've ever done to either organize a specific kind of classic magical ceremony, a Goeishi evocation, or Enochian's a little different because it puts everything flat dab in the lap of each individual, but like getting together in a group to evoke a spirit takes some organization and a level of competence and maturity among the participants of the ritual. And it's more often a case that the ritual is effective or as powerful or as successful as the weakest link in this chain. Okay. In other words, this ritual is never going to succeed any more than the biggest klutz in the room. Now, things like the Gnostic Mass, hey, that's meant to be a mass, like a communal thing. And Crowley wrote the 7 Rites of Eleusis, which at least involves people in like a parlor play, okay? And that's meant. If there's a weak link, well, screw that. Come on, play a part, you know. But as far as the Crowley rituals, as outlined in Magic and Theory and Practice as an example, we don't really have an example, or Crowley hasn't left us with an example of, well, how would you apply that in a group? And even should you? My friend Rodney Orpheus, he's written many thelemic themed books, but back in 2011 he wrote one called The Grimoire of Thelema, and he asked me to pen the introduction to that. Now, I think when it came out, I shared that introduction with you, and I've included it. It's very short, and I included it in my book, which is a collection of my introduction to other people's works. And if this is one of the books that you don't have of mine, and you think, well, I don't want to hear his introductions. Nah, sorry. Some of my best shit is in the introductions to other people's books, and hardly, unless you've read that book, you've hardly ever read it. And even if you did have Rodney's Grimoire of Thelema, you might have just skipped over, you know, this guy's forward to it. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to share it with you this morning for Sunday school. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Remember, this is written for Rodney Orpheus's Grimoire of Thelema. Magic is a lonely art. It must ever be so, because ultimately we are each a universe unto ourselves. Whatever it is we are was alone when we incarnated into this corporeal dimension, and it will be alone at the timeless instant we shuffle off this mortal coil. But as we labor through the measured ticks of space-time on this side of the pylons of birth and death, our whatever it is we are is surrounded and assailed by a vast assortment of other whatever it is we are's. Other monads of consciousness who are also universes unto themselves. And some of these other universes are fellow magicians. Magic is also first and foremost a self-transformational art. It may be the magician's intent to effect changes in his or her life outer circumstances. And I always give the example, I want the girl next door to fall in love with me. Please don't read anything into that. Please, I just use it as an example. I mean it. But the success of any magical operation designed to bring about that romantic outcome will most assuredly be in large part the consequences of the magician becoming transformed into the type of person the girl next door falls in love with. I'm sure there are knowledgeable and skilled magicians who will disagree with my sweeping assertion that the only thing I can change with magic is myself. It is, of course, a statement that's impossible for me to prove or disprove, and frankly, I'm not inclined or motivated to try. I'm not trying to establish or defend magical doctrine. I simply know that for me, at this season of my life, this moment in my magical career, the thing that needs to change the most in my world is me. I have to confess the prospect of magic being a form of consciously directed self-evolution was not initially what attracted me to the art so many years ago. Naturally, I told myself I was doing all of this to gain enlightenment, to achieve spiritual liberation, but in truth, it was the allure of wearing black hooded robes and strutting around in darkened temples, brandishing my wand and sword against terrible demons, cowering in terrified obedience before my radiant adeptship. Man, I'd look so cool doing that. No matter how noble and altruistic my conscious pretenses were, Lon Milo DuQuette, the post-adolescent magician, inwardly desired power. Power to master the cruel and chaotic circumstances of my life, the power to right wrongs I was witnessing in the world around me, power to see things straight and in harmony with my own, obviously already the enlightened vision of personal, moral, social, political, and spiritual absolutes. As comically deluded as I might have been, there is, of course, nothing fundamentally wrong with such youthful and militant idealism. Nothing wrong with wanting to change the world for the better and setting to work to do just that. I guess the biggest flaw in my aspirational game plan was that I was overlooking the fact that in order for me to use magic to begin making these changes, I would first have to consciously evolve into a real magician. As luck would have it, early in my career, I came under the influence and tutelage of magicians who would, each in their own unique way, either by positive example, negative example, or admonition, make sure I never forgot this fundamental fact of life. Foremost among my senior mentors were Phyllis Seckler, Soror Morel, Grady L. McMurtry, Hymenaeus Alpha, Helen Parsons Smith, Soror Grimaud, and Francis Israel Regarde. All these dear people are now deceased. McMurtry and Regarde trained directly under Aleister Crowley, and Seckler had been the student of Jane Wolfe, a student of Crowley's and a one-time resident of Crowley's famous Abbey of Thelema in Sicily. Parsons Smith was the double widow of Jack Parsons, the famed magician and rocket scientist, and Wilfred P. Smith. Both were at different times master of Agape Lodge, OTO, in Southern California. These colorful people kept me from being entirely alone in my early years of my quest. Because of their efforts, and more often despite their efforts, I was, in the mid-1970s, baptized in the magic fire of Thelema, and with their encouragement, cynicism, and guidance, I formally took up the disciplines of Crowley's magical orders, the AA and Ordo Templi Orientis. I know all of this is not too new to you, but remember, this is for Rodney's book. My AA work began under the guidance of Seckler and was, or should have been, an entirely private affair. My OTO experience, on the other hand, required me to work in a more public manner, and with other magicians all over the world, sometimes many other magicians. In fact, an important aspect of OTO's magical curriculum is the development of the individual magician's ability to work in concert and survive within the complexities of a uniquely organized society populated by castes of militantly independent magicians, some of whom are as intractable, imperfect, and flawed as myself. It's a very important part of the magical training of an OTO initiate. I'm going to digress for a second. Not everyone, is suited, or you may even say insensitive enough to discern and discriminate between what they observe to be the unworthy behavior of others and the circumstances of their involvement in what should be a transcendent magical organization. The more ex-members of a magical organization become ex-members or resign or quit in a huff is over the behavior and the projected behavior of individuals as being the organization itself that is behaving unworthily. Now, I know it's hard, especially when organizations have committees and governing bodies and things like that, and they are made up of people, many of whom are assholes. And it's easy to jump to the conclusion that the organization is being an asshole when it's merely perhaps the individuals are abusing their position. That does happen. Find me an organization where that does not happen. But think about this for a moment, that when you join the organization changes. They become youized. You have a certain amount of responsibility now because it's your organization. And if you freak yourself out, the organization's going to freak you out eventually, okay? And anybody is eventually not going to live up to your perceived idea of what is perfection. So and that's one of the downsides, or the downsides of working with a group, period. Okay. Well, anyway, as you might expect, Crowley didn't make the OTO ordeal an easy one. In fact, I've known more promising magicians to wreck on the shoals of the order's societal challenges than for any other reason. Nobody say, "Oh, I don't like the magic of it. I just don't like XYZ. What an asshole," okay? But I digress. More often than not, however, I usually come to see the wisdom and genius of Crowley's magical vetting process. Whether or not they've established a formal AA relationship, a great many OTO initiates and others who consider themselves thelemic magicians embark on the study and practice of the various rituals Crowley developed for the edification of AA magicians. The systematic practice of these rituals vis-a-vis the magician's personal initiatory climb up the tree of life of consciousness is generally viewed in thelemic circles as doing the great work. The work is certainly there to do. The rituals and few commentaries are published in a plethora of sources. One of the finest collections is found in the magnificently ponderous Liber ABA Book 4. They call it sometimes the blue brick. Okay. But for many years, most of us relied almost exclusively on those libers that appeared in the appendices of Magic and Theory and Practice, which I had out yesterday. Okay. Armed with a little more than these libers and a roadmap of the Tree of Life, 4 generations of magicians have set out alone on the thelemic path of return, dissecting, cross-referencing, and trying to make sense of the bewildering subtleties of Crowley's evolving thought, and then attempting to transfer that understanding to the temple environment in coherent ceremonies that can be performed by and for the benefit of one person. To say it's a challenge to be a lone magician would be a beastly understatement. Yes, magic is a lonely art, but it doesn't always need to be that lonely. I don't believe so. And neither does my brother Rodney Orpheus. People, even magicians, sometimes need other people. There are moments in my life when I don't know what I am, where I am, or who I am unless I can see myself momentarily reflected in the souls of others around me. The term thelemic group ritual may sound like an oxymoron, but it needn't be one. As Brother Orpheus reveals, many of Crowley's most significant rituals started out as group operations. Liber Pyramidos, foremost among those, I think. To see the complex dynamics of my own inner magical mechanisms portrayed as different officers in a ritual. And that's where the goofy fun that you have with Crowley's Rites of Eleusis become serious magical personal experiences. I don't know how many times we've, after mounting and performing a rite of Venus or a rite of Sol or a rite of Jupiter or a rite of Saturn, and getting together and rehearsing with people, all of the characters are different astrological aspects and different cosmological and magical personas. When you're Frater Capricornus Emissarius and you evolve to be revealed as Pan in the final thing, you start to learn Pan's lessons. When you're Frater Libra or Soror Libra, you start to learn the Libra lessons, the Saturnian aspects of it. When Sister Pisces dances, you become typecast as a cosmic player. You see this also going on in just regular stock Freemasonry. These characters take on the role. The senior deacon, is flat out Hermes, the guide of the dead. You become the magical character. You've assumed the God form. That's real magic. And it's done in the context of a parlor play. But I digress. Portrayed as different officers in a ritual. I can, of course, and of course must eventually integrate all these officers into myself. But first I have to know who they are, what they do, and what they mean to me. That's the most easily and elegantly done, that is most easily and elegantly done by seeing them operate in a group ritual. I took one look at Rodney's group treatments of the ritual of the Mark of the Beast, and the invocation of Horus, and was thrown back in my chair in stunned admiration. My God, why hasn't somebody done this before? This might sound like a rhetorical question, but in fact it does indeed have an answer. The reason someone hasn't done this before is because there are presently very few individuals living today who are qualified by education, experience to do so, and even fewer with the writing talent and communication skills to bring to life all this on the printed page. Brother Orpheus is the incarnation of both these aspects of genius. Whether he's expanding upon classic Crowley rituals or creating and developing his own thelemic ceremonies, the magician reader can be confident that he or she is in good hands. Magic may be a lonely art, but it doesn't mean we must always be alone on our journey. And it doesn't mean we won't always need friends. Love is a law, Lavender will. And that's just one of quite a few forewords and introductions I've written for other people. And that's my Sunday school lesson for today. You are now dismissed. Run over to Thule's drugstore and get a tuna fish sandwich. Until tomorrow, for order of Monday morning, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.